Welcome back to Silent Hill. Are you ready for class? I know I am.
You
I
say that, dude, and I still have those fucking nightmares where I think I'm still in college and I slept through a whole semester.
And then you walk into class with your pants off? That's how
No.
those nightmares
Well,
usually
I
go.
mean, that's normal. But I hate those dreams so much because I swear to Christ they're real. And then I wake up and I realize, wait a minute, I'm a depressing 30-year-old.
I haven't been to school in years.
I don't have dreams about college, but maybe that's because ITT Tech was such a nothing school. In any case, the map takes on a slightly different form in dungeons that I really appreciate. Every door can be checked. Not all of them can be opened, and some of them are locked. A lot of them are just broken. You can't you can't open the doors that are broken, but you're going to have to check all of them to find all the rooms that you can enter. So on the map, a locked door will be crossed out with a straight line. A door that is unopenable permanently will be squiggled out, and any door that you have been through will have an arrow drawn over it, usually a double-sided one to tell you that you can go through this door in both directions. It's pretty nice, and it gives the Silent Hill dungeon areas an identity that sets them apart from Resident Evil, even though some of these puzzles are honestly Resident Evil key hunts. Like this one, where you just need the two medals. But
That's
there
a
is
good Game Boy Advance game.
it is a good Game Boy Advance game. More people should play Golden Sun and its prequel. What was it called? Lost Age? I think that was a
Yeah.
prequel. I think it was a prequel. Or maybe a midquel. I don't know.
I can't remember. I barely played the DS one.
No. There were two on the Game Boy Advance.
The Game Boy Advance, the second Game Boy Advance game is literally just the second half of the first game.
Oh, second half? Okay.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah, because they didn't have the memory to to make the whole thing.
Yeah, so they just made it two games.
You would be forgiven for thinking that drain that I just looked at was a random background object, but it's not. It's actually associated with one of the keys that you'll find later. The thing about Silent Hill puzzle exploration is that it takes the concepts from Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil and actually makes you have to think about them when you complete them. So if there's a key hunt, there's usually a puzzle associated with that key hunt. Like those two medals, you have to also read some notes throughout the school and do some stuff with the clock to open the door to the other world. God, these things are creepy. Ah, get off.
You just bonk them on the head like a whack-a-mole game.
So there's some symbolism going on in the school that is somewhat spoiled by the censorship in the European release. The kids with the knives are supposed to represent bullies. There's a secondary enemy that is just this little baby-shaped shadow that can't hurt you at all. It squeaks, it runs from you. Sometimes it will sort of hover around you as if seeking your protection. You can't actually be hurt by it, but it's supposed to represent, or at least it seems like it's supposed to represent, the child who is being bullied. Alessa had a really shitty school life, and that's another thing the movie jumped the shark with, by the way. God damn that janitor sequence.
Oh, there's the shadow.
Yeah,
Can
look
you
at it.
hurt
It'll
Can you
tumbles
hurt
over on
the sad child?
I
Or-
don't know. I've never tried. Sometimes it'll just walk through a wall and disappear, and you'll know
Okay.
it's done that when the static. And the only real problem with the baby shadows is that they cause the static on your radio to go off, so they can camouflage the other enemies that are around.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's not really a big issue. The mumblers replacing all of the children in this sequence kind of spoils the point. But
I mean, I
yeah.
do get. Here's the thing: like a lot of people do cry foul whenever games do get censored, and I can understand that. But a lot of the time, I also do understand why
Oh yeah,
these things get
I
changed.
get what you're
too.
saying. You know, sometimes it makes sense, but in this case, it spoils the symbolism of the location, so it kind of
Yeah,
hampers
it does.
the story.
It does hurt the game artistically. I agree there.
Yeah,
But there are some sort of instances, like I believe, what was it? Final Fantasy VI Game Boy Advance. I believe they changed the scene. I think it's when Celis is locked up because there was some sort of murder going on in Japan around that time that was relatively similar, and they didn't want to make. They just thought it was in bad taste, and I
There's
mean
that
that
kind of thing,
changes
too.
that changes the meaning of that scene as well, because you don't get as big of an idea of how badly Celis has been treated. But I think, just in the sense of, for lack of a better term that I can at least think of at this moment, taste, like good taste, I think it's not the worst thing in the world.
It's a fine line. You are trying to entertain people, after all, and if you trigger bad memories or cast someone's mind to a recent event that is difficult to think about, you are undermining the entertainment value of the product. That's just an unfortunate reality. So it's something that, has to be done. In this case, though, it wasn't, I don't think, a recent event that they were censoring it for. It was just the general idea. And, it would have been a recent event if the game had come out just a little bit later. But, yeah, this game kind of undershot Columbine by a very narrow margin, which is why we didn't have that problem.
I mean, then again, you can also sometimes try to invoke those certain recent events or sort of things on purpose. Like the most obvious example I can think of is Modern Warfare 2 with the airport shooting scene. Like, of course, they knew exactly what they were doing when they did that.
Yeah, which is why they gave you the option to skip it, which was, a good compromise. I applaud them for that.
It's also a matter of object permanence. I think developers or filmmakers, whoever, kind of have to realize is that, yeah, it's a fine line to walk, but at the same time, we don't want to show this episode of Pokemon because, Pokemon uses the move Earthquake after an earthquake in Japan. Okay, what do you do when you, put it on DVD years later or stream it years later?
Yeah.
They should have just, the electric Porygon thing, if we're still talking Pokemon, they should just cut out the flashing lights, edit the...
Or at least edit over them to make it not obnoxious.
Yeah, it's one of those, you have to also, when you're doing it, you have to recognize that people are still going to be playing or watching stuff years down the road, so whilst the change at the time makes sense, if it ruins some of the artistic integrity of the scene or whatever...
That's a problem that you have to deal with down the road when it no longer makes sense to change the thing. But, getting back to the specific subject of the school and the children, the movie, I hate what it did with the gray children. Yeah, it kept the gray children because it was, that's iconic to the American audience at the very least. The Grey Children have a backstory now. They're not just symbolic of something, the way things are in Silent Hill in the games. They are the actual children from the school who were cursed to these bodies where they're forced to suffer eternal burning torment because Alessa was burned to death as a witch in that version of the story. Wow.
That's a bit much.
Alessa is a bit much in that movie. Another thing to do with the school... Okay, there's a sequence in this movie, in this game rather, where you go into a bathroom. I think it's in the Otherworld version of the school, and it's an empty room. So you search it, you realize it's empty. You go to turn around and leave, and then you just hear crying. A sound effect of crying coming from the stall. So you go to look for what it is.
Moaning Myrtle.
There's nothing to find. It's just a sound effect. It's one of the scariest moments in the game, and it's not even a monster. It's just this crying sound that catches you completely off guard. There's no explanation for it. You can infer through the symbolism that it's an echo of some point in Alessa's life where she was crying in the bathroom because she was being bullied. The movie has this backstory where Alessa gets raped by the school janitor. And then, for the movie's attempt at symbolism, there's a sequence where Pyramid Head catches Rose and Sybil, I think it's Rose and Sybil, in a janitor's closet or bathroom stall or something like that, and thrusts the sword in and out, and there's bugs that are leaking in, and it's symbolic of the rape that happened. I'm like... Okay, guys.
That's tasteless.
Guys. Someone slap their hands away from the keyboard before they go completely crazy. Please.
Yeah, I never had instances where bugs came out of my penis.
That's supposed to be the sperm, John.
Yeah, that's just kind of... a thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I
don't
shouldn't be
get it.
laughing, but
Anyway, the key item puzzles in this game, the ones that actually just use the key items, I mean, you usually have to think a fair bit about what the purpose of each item will be. And in this case, it's fairly simple. You find a bottle of acid in the storage room next to the lab. You can use that acid to get this stone hand off of the metal that you're trying to get for the puzzle.
Try everything on everything.
It's not a case of try everything on everything. The games have an item combination mechanic where you're supposed to use multiple key items in a specific place. So you wind up having to think of things like you can use a horseshoe, a wax doll, and a lighter to melt the wax and stick the horseshoe into a hole to create a handle so that you can open a door that doesn't have a handle. It's It makes you feel smart when you figure stuff out. There's also stuff like you find these cleaning chemicals, and you can put them in a bucket to kill some bugs that are blocking your way in a hallway. Or you found a random ass hairdryer, and there's a Cthulhu monster that causes instant death if you're crossing this one bridge over water in the sewers in Silent Hill 3. So you can kill the Cthulhu monster by plugging the hairdryer into a nearby outlet and dropping it in the water. It's that kind of thing, you know? I like the way Silent Hill handles its key item puzzles because they aren't usually your elaborate medals and emblems and crests and special keys.
Why hairdryer though? I would have gone with the toaster. I think a toaster would be more
A
obvious.
toaster would have been funnier. Yeah, but
Yeah, you just have her. You just have her. You have her stand next to the lake with the toaster plugged in. But here's your problem: too many toasters.
The reason,
See, a toaster would be funnier, but I think it'd also be more obvious for solving the puzzle.
actually, not necessarily, because a hairdryer is something that people.
yeah, because that's something that's going to be in a bathroom, you know.
It's something that more importantly, it's something that people have accidentally hurt themselves with by trying to dry their hair while they're still in the tub.
You're right.
Why you would want to dry your hair while you're still in the tub, I don't know, but it's something people have actually done. So if you know that in the real world, you can draw the connection between the hairdryer and the water, and think, oh, I can shock this thing to death with this.
Are there any instances where a puzzle can be solved in more than one way? Or
No, not really. Although a lot of the time the item you're supposed to use isn't obvious. And another Silent Hill 3 one, Silent Hill 3 has a lot of great ones, is that there's a bookshelf or something, a shelf, basically, that's up against the wall. And it just looks a bit odd. It calls your attention to it. It's just slightly off enough that you know to check it. And if you check it, Heather won't be able to find out what's behind there because she can't get a good look. You can find a camera and use the camera there, and she'll stick the camera back there and take a snapshot of whatever's behind there so that she can see it in the Polaroid. And that's how you find out what's scratched on the back of the bookshelf. You know, it's not an obvious key goes here puzzle. It's more of an adventure game type puzzle, you know, where you actually do have to sort of think about what to use here. And yeah, you can in a lot of cases just try items on different things and see if you got the thing, but a lot of the time it's something that you can figure out without doing that, and I like figuring that shit out. It's nice. It makes you feel like a clever improviser, which fits in really with the kind of characters you're playing as in the Silent Hill series.
Does this game have different difficulties?
I think so. I'm not sure.
The
That's Silent Hill 2
difficulties.
and Beyond
Yeah,
had difficulties.
yeah, 2 definitely has. It really only changes the enemy health. and
Well, no,
damage
but there's
output.
also a difficulty select for the puzzles because I remember.
Oh yeah,
Matt
the
telling me that
puzzle
the
solutions.
Oh,
the
yeah,
puzzle
that-
solutions
that's
in
the thing
1
in
and
2.
3. And they brought this back in Downpour as well, which was one of the coolest things about Downpour. Puzzle solutions can be either ridiculously easy, normal, which is, you know, you have to work to figure them out, and you're probably going to stop and think about the puzzles for quite a few minutes if you're playing blind. And then there's the hard mode, which is really esoteric. And they're
It's
separate.
like, I hope you remembered Shakespeare.
They're separate difficulty settings. That's the best thing. You don't have to deal with health sponge enemies to get the harder puzzles. It's really, really cool. I love it. And I think in like Silent Hill 3 at least, if you beat the hardest mode of puzzle difficulties, you unlock an even harder mode. And they're like riddles
And there are
that you
new
need to solve.
puzzles each time, basically.
They're riddles that you need to solve, and they're completely different riddles for every difficulty mode.
That's cool, actually.
The thing about the puzzles, though, is that they don't. The difficulty mode doesn't affect every puzzle in the game, just the major puzzles. Every area generally has 1 or 2 riddle puzzles that you need to solve to progress, and it's those puzzles that get affected by the difficulty mode. So yeah, it's
Recreate the mathematical equations that got us to the moon. All right, I'm game.
It's a cool, unique aspect of the game, and Silent Hill 4 and Homecoming completely dropped it. But Downpour brought it back, and that's one of the best things about that particular game in the series.
I don't mind a good puzzle here and there as long as it's not overly obtuse.
Well, that's why the difficulty setting for the puzzles is so interesting, because you can get either a really easy or just kind of middle ground puzzle for your first playthrough, and then on later playthroughs, the problem with replaying a game that's puzzle heavy is that the solutions to the puzzles already. You can replace those puzzles with harder puzzles. It's great. It adds so much replay value to the game, which is important because the Silent Hill doesn't really have that Resident Evil brand of replay value where efficiency in exploration is what drives the replay value,
Yeah, I don't think you get an infinite rocket launcher either if you beat this game fast
Well,
enough.
there are New Game Plus weapons. I think
Rocket launcher?
there's a chainsaw and a rock drill, because this game's kind of melee focused. So
Okay, rocket launcher that shoots out chainsaws.
here's the thing about the extra weapons. In New Game Plus, you can find a tank of gas, and you can use that tank of gas on one or the other of the 2 special weapons, the chainsaw or the rock drill. You can only get one, but once you've unlocked it, it's available for all future playthroughs, so you have to play at least 3 playthroughs to unlock both.
I honestly thought you were going to say you get a tank of gas that you can use on your car and get the fuck out of the game before it even starts.
Well, I don't think a tank of gas is going to fix that bang-up job. So that thing's totaled.
I mean, it works for all of them. He just gets the engine and it works for a ship. Gas be damned.
He only just got smashed by a meteor and crash landed on an alien planet. He like ran into a wall. That's like dangerous.
The only thing that would have made that Jeep more unsalvageable is if it were mauled by a T-Rex before it landed in town. Okay.
Don't worry, a teenager and his 12-year-old brother will fix it up, no problem.
What's that a reference to?
Jurassic World.
Jurassic World.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Although to be fair,
he
in
knew
that case,
about cars.
In
and
that case,
stuff.
in that case, the visual storytelling kind of makes it seem more unbelievable than it is. They just salvage a battery from the newer car outside and then put the battery in the old Jeep.
That Jeep's been sitting there for 20 years. Those tires are going to be dead.
The tires are.
They could have changed the tires too.
Yeah, tires rot.
Huh.
You know what? I remember that because they mentioned that in The Last of Us, where it's just like.
Well,
you need
yeah.
a car
At the
that
same
has
time, they
tires
only
that
need to
are
drive
working.
at a short distance, so it's not necessarily a critical problem. But the battery, all they really needed to do was get the battery from the newer Jurassic World Jeep that's that's totaled outside, and stick it in the older Jeep from several years ago.
No time to play Moonlight Sonata.
You say that, but you do need to play the piano to progress. It's just that the piano hasn't been unlocked yet. You need to solve these puzzles in sequence for the piano to open itself. Yeah, the piano opens itself. Okay, so this locker is it purely exists as a setup for a scare moment later on. Okay, so there's a cat trapped in this locker here. You let the cat go. It gets eaten by a monster.
You asshole! You killed the cat.
I think it would have died if we just left it in there to starve to death.
No,
anyway,
because
dude.
the game wouldn't register that the cat was interacted with, so it would technically still be alive.
Schrodinger's locker cat.
This is just a setup for a scare later on. Although letting the cat free, I think, does spawn some enemies outside the room. Yeah. So
You just gave him live bait, you asshole.
It's especially interesting to think about that moment when you consider how the cat got in the locker in the first place. Well, obviously some asshole bully kid put it there, right? So you have to deal with that asshole bully kid in the form of a great child. But it's a setup for when you get to that room in the other world. The thing is, that room serves no functional purpose for your progression through the game in either this version of the school or in the other world version. It's just a scare. It's just there to creep you out. Stuff like that is littered throughout Silent Hill. Well, more so in Silent Hill 3, the mannequin room. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I think I recall that, yeah.
The mannequin room scared the shit out of me.
What happens in the mannequin room?
I almost don't want to spoil it. Like, if you play the game blind, it's such a great moment.
No, we're not going to get to it
We're
for like...
thankful for you joining us for a Silent Hill 1 commentary where we're spoiling the events of the game for you.
No. Here's the thing. Okay? If I tell you what it is now, it's not going to have the same effect on you when you get into that room later on.
Fine, you can tell me when we're done with the part.
Oh.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, it's gonna take like 5 years for us to get to the game.
I don't want to spoil it. It's one of the best moments in the series, and it's so simple too. So I'm not going to tell you. You got to play Silent Hill, and
I'll just look up a YouTube video then.
Yeah.
Damn it,
You
Ryan.
can't stop me.
you're no fun. Okay, you're no fun. It's one of those moments where it's only scary if you play it. It's like one of the few times that Silent Hill actually does a jump scare. Silent Hill doesn't do jump scares most of the time. So the 1.5 times in the series where it does jump scare you are really, really effective as a result. Because you don't expect them. Something about Resident Evil trains you to expect the jump scare, so...
Well, that's a lot of horror in general these days.
Yeah. But Silent Hill is more of an ambience horror kind of thing. It's the random noises that play in the background that get you. John, you know what I'm talking about. You've played Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 does the exact same goddamn thing, where there's all kinds of random background ambience noises that make you think there's something lurking around, but it's just a random noise. And then
I
something
wouldn't
actually
recommend playing RE7 with headphones if that's what you were getting at.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Silent Hill was the game that started that kind of approach to video game horror, where the random background noises provide a lot of the tension, because you never know exactly what noises are attached to something you actually have to worry about.
Well, I mean, again, my horror game experience is kind of limited to what I just play and slightly know, but, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's is the same. Well, the first game at the very least. I'm not sure what the other games do because I don't play those games with headphones on, especially not the fourth one.
Well, yeah, Five Nights does the
Aren't
same
there,
sort of thing.
aren't there like 6 now?
There's I don't see it.
Well,
can't
Five Nights at Freddy's does the same sort of thing, but there's the problem that you're not really exploring in Five Nights at Freddy's, so it's a different sort of tension.
But the noise itself is used as a tool to help build tension.
Yeah, it's just in the context of a Silent Hill game or a Resident Evil 7, you're always wondering what noises are attached to things that you'll find when you turn the corner, you know?
Yeah.
So,